guys, welcome in another edition of the Rob Kendall Show. Happy Tuesday. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Don't forget, check out the website, robkendallshow.com. Bookmark that. We've got the live link there, links to all the podcasting platforms, which, by the way, if you miss any of the show live on YouTube, 10 until noon, you can check out, of course, the on-demand on YouTube or wherever you get your favorite podcast, like Apple, Spotify, all of the places. And again, we want to thank everybody who has been a part of that with us over the past couple of weeks. Great start. This show has grown by leaps and bounds. You guys have been phenomenal. We can't thank you enough. We need to keep that going, though. That's the key. Never be complacent. We are growing this show together. We are growing this show for you. We are growing this show to hold accountable our politicians, the elected officials, our governments across the state, and we're going to do that together. We're going to grow it together. We can't do it without you. RobKendallShow.com. Find everything there. Don't forget, you can also follow me on Twitter at Rob M. Kendall, at Rob M. Kendall. All right, let's get right to our program. Interesting column to start the day, and this is a guy that I have disagreed with a lot over the years, but I read this article yesterday. I said credit where credit is due. This is a pretty good column. It comes from a guy by the name of Michael Hicks, and Michael Hicks is a Ball State professor, and he writes a regular column over at the Indy Star. By the way, speaking of Indy Star, I think this is okay for me to go ahead and say. They've had me cut a promo for it. Later this week, it's expected, I have a column coming out in Indy Star about the Mid-States Corridor, this horrible, rotten, no-good plan to connect 64 to 69 in southwest Indiana. People down there are outraged. You guys know one of my great accomplishments in life before I was put out to pasture was that we stopped that Mid-States Corridor for now. And that will save, hopefully, the taxpayers billions of dollars. And this column that I'm writing for the Indy Star, you guys are going to love it. It's a big column, long column. We're going to go into how Mike Braun, the governor of Indiana, is seen as being one of the big financial beneficiaries of this government project. And so it's supposed to come out later this week. We'll tell you more about it once we know the exact day, and we'll share it once we get it. But that's coming out later this week. Anyway, speaking of Indy Star, Michael Hicks, Ball State professor. I have disagreed with him a lot over the years. However, I thought this column he put out yesterday about data centers was pretty well done. And of course, data centers are all the talk, not just in central Indiana, but across the entire state. And this column that Hicks wrote was really comparing the hysteria to the data center boom to the hysteria around the Walmart boom about 25 years ago. You guys remember this? Where Walmart went on this big national expansion where it seemed like there was a Walmart popping up on every corner. We had this in the town where I live, in Brownsburg. For years and years and years, there was just the Kmart. If you wanted to do your shopping, you went to the Kmart. And then all of a sudden, this gigantic Walmart comes in within what? Probably 5 to 6 years, maybe 7. Kmart out of business. And of course, does Kmart even exist anymore? They done all around. There may be a few left. I don't think there are many. Anyway, what Hicks's column is talking about is the hysteria from people around the Walmart boom and the concerns about damage, the changing of communities, etc., and how the data center boom today and the public reaction to the data centers is very similar to the Walmart boom of the late 90s and the early 2000s. Now, some of this pushback in Hick's column, we'll go into it, warranted. Some of it, probably not. And this comes back to the conversation that we keep having about the data centers, which really is an important conversation because what happens with the data centers in Indiana is going to shape the landscape, literally, of our state for generations to come. And it's important to get the data conversation right, to make sure the policies are right, not just try to be fast, not try to be first, and put data centers in places where they can succeed. Data centers are relevant. They're very relevant. They're very important. We would be complete hypocrites to come to you and say, well, data centers are bad. We don't want them. No, we're literally on YouTube right now. We're going to other podcasting platforms when we get done here. Data centers have a vital role in the free flow of information, in terms of making life better, in terms of making life easier. Look, we use data centers for all sorts of stuff. And so Hicks' column, first of all, I thought he did a good job of talking about the different types of data centers and what they do. One of the things the data center people have not done well is spell out what exactly these data centers are doing. How are they bettering the lives of people in communities? How are they bettering the lives of people in the state? What are the actual advantages to having data centers in our communities? And so Hicks talks a little bit about this. There are really three main types. There are more, but there are three main types of data centers. Number one, the mining of digital currency. Obviously, a huge part of the financial sector now. Bitcoin, Dogecoin, those types of things. That's done by data centers. Cloud computing, where you store all of your stuff, medical records, your photos. Again, very important. Things all of us use in some capacity. And last is the artificial intelligence. Now, the artificial intelligence is what's causing the data center boom. There have been these data centers for years. We haven't seen the push. We haven't seen the mass expansion like we have the past 5 years or so we have seen it now because of artificial intelligence. And that's where a lot of these data centers that are coming in are what the purpose or the premise of them are for the artificial intelligence. And look, again, I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say all AI is bad. There are certainly concerns about artificial intelligence. There certainly need to be safeguards around artificial intelligence, but AI certainly has many positive qualities, certainly has the ability to make life easier. We all are using AI or a part of AI in some capacity now. And I'm not going to be a complete hypocrite and say all data centers are bad and any data center working with AI is bad. I'm not going to do that. Now, Hicks does a really nice job, and again, I can't believe I'm saying this about Michael Hicks, but again, credit where credit is due, and you can read the whole column over at IndyStar. I think laying out the pros and cons of the data centers. And one of the things he points out, and this has sort of been a selling point, if not directly but indirectly, by our state about the data centers, because the state is giving out huge money to attract these data centers. And that is a big reason for a lot of the pushback, and it's very valid. The data centers don't create a lot of jobs outside of constructing the data center. Once that's done, there's not a lot of people working in the data centers. And so people are rightfully asking, well, why are we giving, in some cases, real money, these huge tax incentives? Why are we giving this for these things that don't really do anything for the communities they're in? They just are there and they sit there. Why are we doing this? How is this bettering the lives of Hoosiers? And Hicks points out one of the selling points, especially from the state and some of these communities as well, where these data centers are going is, well, it's the future of technology. We could be tech hubs. We could be tech giants. We could get all of these future tech jobs that are coming in because of data centers. That's not true. The way the tech community is centered, the way it's built, data centers are their own standalone entity. And I thought this was something really important that Hicks pointed out. Data centers are their own thing. Just because you attract a data center doesn't mean that a bunch of tech companies are going to be flocking to your community. Doesn't mean a bunch of tech giants with high-paying jobs are like, oh, there's a data center. I'm just making up a place. There's a data center in Greenfield. Let's all go to Greenfield. That's not how this works at all. And it's not how it's likely to work. The tech field doesn't need to be near the data center. And in fact, data centers tend to really just attract more like-minded types of data centers. Don't expect, and I think the state has directly and indirectly alluded to, well, this is the future, right? We'll get all the... No, that's not going to happen. Don't think because a data center comes to your community that these great high-paying tech jobs are going to follow. Hicks also points out, fairly, that data centers should not be near population centers, with places with high residential areas. They're noisy, they create pollution, they can potentially harm home values. Data centers should not be near high residential areas, period. One of the things that he argues, and this is where the controversy comes in, and he's probably right with this, The best location for data centers in terms of the data center itself and the value that it can actually add without potentially harming the area, the people around the data center, is in vast areas of farm field. Look, we're getting more and more away from the idea of the family farm, and that's not a good thing. That's not good. We've talked about the landscape, the history of the area, the character of the area. Those are all things that have been eroded, especially over the past 10 years in central Indiana, where high-density housing developments and these data centers and industrial warehouses have been gobbling up pristine farmland. But from a sheer logistics standpoint, Hicks argues the best use, the best area to put a data center is on farmland. So that brings us to the broader conversation, not a part of Hicks' article, but part of the broader conversation, which is data centers themselves are not bad. We all need them. We're all going to use them. And especially the data centers, as we said, that pertain to making life easier, making life more effective, helping with technology, medical advances. All of those things are going to help us in the future. The key is, though, we shouldn't be giving away incentives to data centers because data centers need what Indiana has to offer far more than we actually need the data centers. If a data center comes in, and I'm just making up a number here, right? Let's say it's a 1 million square foot building, and let's say that building would ultimately end up paying, and again, I'm just making up numbers here, but let's say that data center has an assessed value of $300 million, the actual physical cost to build the building of $300 million. Well, if that data center, its full freight, 3% property tax cap, businesses, commercial development capped at 3%, that would be potentially $9 million a year in property taxes that data center would be paying. That's a lot of money, especially for smaller communities, especially for more rural communities. Data centers also don't create the truck traffic. They don't create the strain and need for housing. If you had to choose a development that was paying its full freight, $9 million for a smaller community is potentially all life-altering for the future of those communities, infrastructure, things they can do. However, the problem becomes these special super abatements in which it would take, oftentimes, those data centers decades to pay the full freight. Well, if in year one the data center was paying $300,000 versus $9 million, and it takes, like I said, 15, 20 years to get that data center to its full obligation, it may not even be here then. Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. The financial incentives that we are giving away to get these data centers here should be a major point of concern for all of us, that we are incentivizing to an extreme. There is special rules for data centers. We've also seen the sales tax abatements, the financial giveaways on the stuff in the data centers, which also should be paying taxes. And in many cases, they are not, or certainly not the full freight that they would be. If the data centers were obligated to their obligation that other businesses are seeing, I think it would be a much different conversation about putting data centers on farmland. And then, of course, that brings us to the other obvious red flag outside of the incentives, the giveaways, which is the resources that the data centers use. The state of Indiana needs to step in, and I am not a big state needs to person, just like I'm not a big federal government needs to person. But the state of Indiana needs to step in and require any data center that's going to be developed should not be creating a financial strain or a resources strain on existing utility users. The job of the government is to serve the citizen. And in the case of the data center and the strain that many of these data centers with both a water and electrical usage, and by the way, Hicks points out, and this is very fair, the way electrical or most utility usage works, also true for water, sewer, et cetera, these and gas, these utility providers are setting rates based on usage across the state. So if you live in Greenfield and there's a data center being built in Mooresville, you're still going to pay for it. They don't just say, well, now there's a bunch more electricity being used in Mooresville, so we'll raise the rates of Mooresville utility users. Like that, this is not how it works. They base the rate based on usage across the state, which is why I'm advocating for the state to step in to create clear mandates and safeguards around data centers and the resources that they are using. That needs to happen. The two major red flags that if they could find a way to get them resolved, I think you would see much less pushback on data centers is one, the financial incentives, the special financial incentives, the quite frankly, very unfair financial incentives they're being given. And two, the resources that they're using and ensuring that resource usage does not create a financial or an allocation strain. That's the bigger thing. We're moving out of, and we're going to get into this later with Bill Herrick, the oil guy, who's going to talk about the war with Iran and the potential gas shortage that's being created. With gas, we could potentially move out of, wow, gas is really expensive to, wow, gas is hard to get. And the same thing with utilities. We are moving from, wow, the rates keep going up on electricity, on gas, on water, to, wow, that stuff could eventually become very hard to get. And it shouldn't be hard to get for humans because data centers need it. I want to read the last part of the column here, and I thought Hicks wraps this up very well. He says, quote, state and federal governments should neither compel nor prevent communities from making their own decisions about data centers. Bingo. We are seeing the state of Indiana because there has been such pushback from local governments and the people in those communities. Now, they haven't been super successful at doing it yet, but they're trying, and they'll come back again next year, trying to pass laws that would compel communities to essentially accept the data centers. That should not be happening. Data centers should be a choice for the local communities, for the planning commissions, for the town and city councils, and for the people of those communities. And if the data centers get better about explaining the benefits, if the data centers get better on, and the local governments get better on laying out the financial benefits, and those financial benefits get better, and if we get assurances that the resources being used will not force other people to pay more or make those resources harder to get, I think you're going to see much less pushback when it comes to the data centers being built and a more harmonious relationship as Indiana becomes a data center home. Guys, let me tell you about one of our fabulous new sponsors here on the Rob Kendall Show. He is a phenomenal human being. He is our guy, Gary Tedrow. Hey, before choosing a mortgage, it's smart to talk with someone you trust and can actually get down with because he's local. That's where our guy, Gary Tedrow with Verity Mortgage, comes in. He's a local lender helping buyers and homeowners across central Indiana with home purchases, refinancing, and strategies to manage debt using home equity. Man, like the home buying process, the refinancing process, that is such a big deal. And that's where Gary Tedrow comes in because he's local. Gary focuses on education and guidance so you understand your options before making a decision. No pressure, just solid advice from someone like you. To see what may be possible for you, visit loansbygary.homes. That's loansbygary.homes. And you've got nothing to lose but dollars on your mortgage payment. So call for a free, no-obligation quote, 317-695-5179, 317-695-5179. Gary Tedrow, NMLS, number 179207 with Verity Mortgage, NMLS, number 70345, an equal housing opportunity lender. Okay, when we come back, you will not believe how the war in Iran is now impacting what farmers are having to pay, which means potentially in the not too distant future, what we're going to have to pay for food and many other things. We'll take a quick break. You're watching Rob Kendall Show.
Buying a home or thinking about refinancing? Work with someone local who understands the central Indiana market. Gary Tedrow with Verity Mortgage helps homebuyers and homeowners explore options for purchasing, refinancing, or even consolidating higher interest debt through their mortgage. Gary's approach is simple, clear advice, and personalized guidance so you can make confident decisions. Visit loansbygary.homes to learn more or get started today. You've got nothing to lose but dollars on your mortgage payment. So call for a free, no-obligation quote 317-695-5179. Gary Tedrow, NMLS number 179207 with Verity Mortgage, NMLS number 70345, an equal housing opportunity lender.
Are you seeing cracks in mortar, moisture working through walls, facade or structural failure beginning to surface? Bramwell Mackay sets the standard for exterior and structural building solutions. Our 40-year master masons and industry experts address moisture intrusion, failing foundations, masonry deterioration, and more. From preserving historic landmarks to addressing modern building envelope issues, Bramwell Mackay delivers full-spectrum service with white-glove professionalism. In Indianapolis, call 812-33-BRICK. 812-33-BRICK.
Are you a Clay County resident who is ready to be part of creating a brighter future for our citizens? Doug Cobb is running for county commissioner and will bring fresh perspective to the table. A local farm and business owner, he has skin in the game of our county's success. He knows that a great team can accomplish so much more than any one of us alone and is ready to create a brighter future for Clay County together. The committee to elect Doug Cobb approves this ad. Paid for by Linda Cheatham.
Hey guys, welcome back. Rob Kendall Show. Before we get to our next topic about how much this war in Iran is costing our farmers here in central Indiana, I want to thank you guys again for a great first couple of weeks. You guys have been outstanding. The subscribers continue to grow, and man, it's helping us so much. I mean, there are so many cool things Jason and I have in the works for you guys. We got to get into our new studio to get some of that going. We're hoping early next month we're going to be in there, and that'll be up and operational. But there's just a ton of cool stuff on the way. And it's stuff you guys are doing now is really going to help us in the future grow this show. And that is what we're going to do. We are going to continue to make this better. We're going to cover Indiana politics and government and news unlike anybody else. And I just want to thank you guys for your investment with us. You guys have been great. Let's keep that subscriber count climbing. If you know somebody, if you haven't done it yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button. And I know it sounds like a broken record, but this is really important, and it is really helping us get this thing launched off the ground. Don't forget, if you miss any part of the show live, you want to go back, obviously you can watch it on YouTube, but also the podcasting platforms. Apple, Spotify. We are on all of those places. You can listen to the program. We have that up after we air live. Those numbers have been phenomenal as well. We just want to thank you guys for your passion, for your enthusiasm, for keeping us growing here at the Rob Kendall Show. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button. Hit that thumbs up button. That really helps us too. And share this feed. Let people know where we are, what we're doing. Let's keep this thing growing, rolling, because it's going to benefit all of us. The more we can grow, the more influence we're going to have, the more we can hold these politicians accountable. And that is all thanks to you guys. All right, so let's talk about this article from WRTV6, of course, TV station here in central Indiana. And they were talking about how much the war in Iran is raising the prices of things our farmers buy here in central Indiana. Now, come back to a segment we did last week where I talked about the goal of the war from both sides. And obviously, the goal of the war for the United States perspective is they want to take out this Iranian regime. Iran, one of the world's largest state sponsors of terror. They hate the United States. They hate Israel. The United States says, hey, we want to get rid of you guys. We want a government in there that will cooperate with us, that will help us with terror, with the oil, all of these things, right? The problem for the United States is Iran, their goal, stay alive, right? It's like they're like the Michael Scott Paper Company dealing with getting rid of these guys. They take one guy out, they throw another guy in. And their goal is to simply stay alive because Iran knows, and they're doing it, they have the ability to hurt not just the United States, but the world economic community because of the reliance not only on Iranian oil, but also getting that oil through the Strait of Hormuz. And they've obviously taken those things to task. Trump is not getting the cooperation from the world community that I think he naively thought he was going to get. And so Iran's goal is to, it's like Survivor, right? Outwit, outlast, outplay. We stay around long enough, you're going to have to eventually stop. We'll stay alive. We can hurt you. And WRTV6 had an article about how much Iran's war, the war with Iran, is hurting farmers in central Indiana because fertilizer prices are skyrocketing. And this is a horrible time to have that happen because it's right before planting season. So they interviewed a guy. His name is Blaine Heiser. He's a farmer who works in Kewanna, which is north central Indiana. And he said not only is the price of all of this stuff skyrocketing, and by the way, coming up next, Bill Herrick, the oil guy, will be with us. We're going to talk about how high oil might go, how high gas might go, and how that's going to affect what you pay at the pump. Plus some tips on how to maybe get cheaper gas. But this farmer, Blaine Heiser, was saying the concern now is not just the price of what it costs, but actually being able to get to the stuff. He said, quote, if you go to your local co-op or wherever you get your fertilizer, a lot of them just took their bids off the table. They couldn't even get a price. Look, Trump made the decision to do this attack on Iran. And we've talked about it. The very first segment we did on this show was about that. There are really only two ways to deal with the Iranians on the old regime. Ignore them, try to put some economic pressure with your allies, and just hope that they don't get the bad stuff in the hands of the right people to do horrible stuff to us. It's not a great strategy. It doesn't solve the problem long term, but it keeps some level of economic stability in terms of prices, being able to get things, etc. The second option, do what Trump's doing now. Go all in. Try to take them out. Try to get the Iranian people to rise up. Not happening, by the way. Not happening. And hope that you can get a government that you can deal with that will create stability for the world going forward. In the meantime, I think one of the things that's frustrating to people is one of the major reasons Trump has been elected twice is a perception that even though he is a super rich guy, he has a connection with regular people. Like there's some part of Trump where you go, that's a regular dude. Obviously, no part of his life has ever been, I'm a regular dude. But he has that perception that he can connect with regular people. Trump seems very aloof or very out of touch at the pain that regular people are feeling right now, about what the price increases are doing to regular people, about how the decision, like this article in The Hill the other day about the CNN, some others I think had reported, well, the Trump people didn't think the Strait of Hormuz was going to get shut down. And Trump's people came out and said, we totally thought it was going to get potentially shut down. We briefed everybody on it. And so it's like, okay, so you thought that was going to happen, which had to mean that you would know, or you had to know, gas was going to have a dramatic spike. All of these things were going to get harder to get. Fertilizer was going to go up. And you did it anyway. Trump and the Trump administration has not done a good job of explaining the benefits of doing this invasion, of these attacks. And people are seeing all of this stuff go up. It's going to be harder to get. And what's the benefit to us? It doesn't make you a selfish person to ask what the benefit to you is. You pay taxes. You live in this country. You are a citizen. You have the right to know in any action your government takes what the benefit to you is going to be. And in the case of Trump and the Trump administration, I don't think they're doing a very good job of explaining the benefits while everyone is certainly feeling the pain. Let me tell you about my guys at Vent Savvy. We love Vent Savvy. Most people think a bathroom fan is just about cleaning the mirror, clearing the mirror, and it is not. It's about what you and your family are breathing. Yes, this is so important. When steam hangs in the air after a shower, that moisture soaks into the drywall and the ceilings. That's how mold starts, and you won't always see it until it's a real problem. Poor ventilation can affect air quality throughout your home. You should call Vent Savvy. They specialize in properly upgrading and venting bathroom exhaust fans so moisture leaves the house, not lingers in it. This is, what is a penny spent is worth a pound of prevention, or whatever, the old Benjamin Franklin, close on that, right? Basically, small investment now, big savings potentially later. That's where Vent Savvy comes in. And here's how this works. You go to ventsavvy.com, 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 or call 317-300-4434, and you mention my name. Say, I heard your ad on Rob's show. John is the owner there. Say, John, heard your ad on Rob's show. John's going to come out to your house free of charge. He's going to give you a free attic inspection. He'll take a look around, see what you got going on. If you don't need the service, he'll tell you, hey, you're good to go. Thanks for thinking of us. Thanks for calling us. Keep us posted. We're here for you. But if you do need something, you got John as a local guy. He's a North Central grad. He's Hoosier through and through. It's a fascinating story, too. John is a handyman extraordinaire, does all sorts of home repairs. And he was in all these homes, and he started seeing, when he was doing these home repairs, this moisture that was getting into these attics. And he said, somebody should do something about it. It's a major problem. It's a problem a lot of people don't know exists, and that's why he invented Vent Savvy. So call today. You got nothing to lose. That's how John works. He'll come out for the free inspection when you mention Rob by visiting ventsavvy.com or 317-300-4434. Okay, let's talk about a column. Speaking of Indy Star, we touched on them earlier. Our old pal, Jacob Stewart. Jacob Stewart, columnist, Indy Star. He's going to be with us to talk about this column later this week. But it came out today, came out this morning. Everybody head over to indystar.com, read the column. I've got a column coming out in Indy Star, scheduled to come out later this week, about the Mid-States Corridor, about the pushback in Southwest Indiana, about how people are outraged because they perceive the governor as sort of being the big winner financially, potentially, in the Mid-States Corridor, spending billions of dollars of our money. I think you guys are going to love the column. But Jacob Stewart has a column in Indy Star today about the state of Indiana banning Fishers and Carmel from putting rental caps on subdivisions. So what was this? A couple years ago, Fishers and Carmel said, look, we're getting a lot of complaints from our residents. We're seeing this ourselves, that there are more and more homes that are being bought by these for-profit megacorporations. And these for-profit megacorporations are turning them into rentals, and these rentals are not being kept up with the same level of TLC, attention, care, maintenance that these other homes in the community are seeing, and homeowners in these communities would like something to be done about it. So what the Carmel and Fishers did is they put rental caps. They said, I believe the number was 10%, no more than 10% of any home in a subdivision can be a rental property. Well, of course, these rental giants, which a lot of them are. And then, look, there's a lot of fine people. We a very good friend. You guys know him, many of you. I know he watches our show each day. Ethan Hatcher, who is a local landlord, owns a small amount of rental properties, rents those out. We're not talking about people like that. We're talking about these giant for-profit corporations that are owned by in a lot of venture capital firms, et cetera, that are gobbling up homes. And if we go back in the time machine, one of the major reasons we saw a home price spike in 2020 was because money became super cheap, and these megacorps were able to get access to far more money than you were going to get access to, and they were at a cheaper rate than you were able to get it, and so they were able to outbid people who were looking at homes to buy, to live in. They were able to outbid them, and then they turned them into rental properties. I will never forget this. My now wife and I, in 2020, we were looking at homes. We went to a home that we liked. We thought there might be an issue with the roof. We went and saw and looked at the house. It looked nice. I knew the area. I'd actually lived right next to the house in question at one point. And I looked at the roof and I said, hey, I like this house, but there's an issue with the roof. We need to get, now this would have been on a Saturday. We went to the home, the open house. And I said, hey, I like this house. I'm concerned about the roof. We need to get somebody out there to look at the roof. And the realtor was very direct with us. They said, you got until Monday. I said, Monday? I can't even get somebody out here until middle of the week. What do you mean it got till Monday? He goes, look, we'll have the bids. We'll have enough. We don't have time to wait for you to do a roof inspection. People will buy it as is. I said, but there's clearly an issue with this roof. I said, we know. Doesn't matter. We have people who will buy this house. And in hindsight now, I think they were talking more and more about these megacorps who, look, they'll come in and fix it. It doesn't matter because they're going to rent it. The mortgage payment is irrelevant to them. They're getting money so cheap. They're going to rent it. And so all of that, the point of all that is you had people, middle income families trying to bid against these rental properties, and they were losing the bid, and it's a major reason home prices spiked. So Jacob Stewart at Indy Star talks about the damage that this, so Carmel and Fishers put this ban in. As soon as they do that, the rental lobby goes ballistic. They start lobbying the lawmakers, putting the pressure on lawmakers, and lawmakers enacted a ban which bans Fishers and Carmel, or any community, from putting a cap on the rental properties. The ban, according to Stewart, was hidden in the 418-page House Enrolled Act 1210. House Enrolled Act 1210. 418 pages. Do you think anybody actually read, what percentage of the 150 lawmakers you think read 418 pages of that bill? The answer is probably very few. And basically what Stewart is saying, and he goes through this, about how rental properties actually make home ownership more expensive, which is what I just talked about. The average rent, according to Jacob Stewart with the Indy Star, for a single-family home in Carmel is around $2,700. $2,700 a month to rent a home. I don't mind telling you guys, that's like 3 times what I'm paying for my house right now. 3 times. And I'm guessing the house, I mean, look, I don't live in a mansion. You guys know it's 4 times what Jason's paying on his house. And look, I don't live in a mansion. You guys know, we've talked about it. I live in a very modest single family brick ranch house, right, on 1/3 of an acre. But we take care of our home. We keep it up to date. We keep the grass cut, the weeds down. We spray all of those things, right? We have pride in our home because people know this is where Rob Kendall and his wife live and their family lives, and I want it to be nice for my daughter. I'm invested in the home. The average rent on an apartment or condominium in Carmel, $1,900 a month. So the single-family homes are renting for $800 more a month on average in Carmel compared to a condominium or an apartment. And this really comes back to the conversation that we have about property taxes, right? Here we go again. It's the never-ending conversation. Stewart in his column talks about how renting sort of destabilizes the neighborhood. Look, I was a renter for years. It doesn't make you a bad person if you're a renter. Our old friend Pete the Planner, you guys know Pete the Planner, financial guru. Know him for years, done various media outlets. You've seen him on television, etc. Pete the Planner and I had this conversation years ago about, especially for young people, there's a lot of validity in renting. You save on, cutting grass in some cases. Something breaks, somebody else fixes it. This is not an indictment of renters per se, but if you're renting, you're not there forever. You're not there for the long term. And that is in stark contrast to people who are buying homes. People who buy tend to invest in the area. They invest in the neighborhood. My dad has been at the same place for 40 years. The people who live across the street from me have been there 45 years, right? Like it's a state that I know who the homeowners are. I've lived essentially in and around the same street. I've lived in a 1-mile radius my entire life. I know who the people are. And when I was a kid, all the homes on my street essentially were owner occupied. They were well kept. They were well maintained. They were all homes similar to mine. They're not mansions. They're not high value, in terms of dollar amount homes, but people took pride in them. I know every day the majority of these homes, more and more of them on my street, are becoming rentals, and the homes are not nearly as well maintained as they used to be. The lawns are not nearly as well maintained. The trees aren't trimmed and kept up to date. Rental properties do not invest or do not reward stability. They don't reward investment in the community. They don't reward longevity. Same thing is true with property taxes. Think about how regressive the property tax is to stability. You live in your home like my dad has for 40 years. Never monetized his home. All he's done is done all the things, right? Kept the home looking nice, the grass cut, the weeds trimmed, all of those things. Our neighbors, same thing. They've never monetized the asset, yet they're probably paying 4 or 5 times more yearly in property taxes than when they bought the home because other people have sold their homes. Other people have cashed out. Other people have sold to rental giants who have made living more expensive. And who gets punished? Not the person who sold the home. Who gets punished? The person who's lived on the street for 20 or 30 or 40 years. We have a system that punishes stability in our state. We have a system that punishes people doing the right thing, becoming a part of the community, a fabric of the community, investing in where they live, keeping their homes up to date, keeping their homes nice and the lawns manicured. We have a system that punishes those people. And this rental cap, which, look, there's valid arguments on both sides. But ultimately, it comes back to that should be a decision for the people of Carmel. That should be a decision for the people of Fishers. If they've identified a problem and they want to try to curb it by putting a policy in that everybody knows when they move there, then they should have the right to do that. It's another example of the state putting its thumb on communities that the majority of the reps and the senators, don't really know anything about. And that is not a good thing. Let me tell you about my friends at Bramwell Mackay. Bramwell Mackay have been with us since before there even was a Rob Kendall Show. Bramwell Mackay is a huge supporter of what we do, and let me tell you a little bit about what they do to help you, whether you're a business owner, homeowner, they do it all. Leaky chimney, water in the basement, cracks around the exterior of your home. Bramwell Mackay Property Services and Consultants is your authority for chimney repair, tuck pointing, foundation repair, crawl space to basement conversions, basement waterproofing, and more. Bramwell Mackay doesn't offer quick patches. Their team of 40-year master masons and industry experts address the root cause and provide solutions that last lifetimes. Your home is one of your biggest investments. Treat it that way. Bramwell Mackay, BramwellMCKAY.com, your masonry, foundation, and chimney specialist. Okay, how much is gas going to climb to? How hard is gas going to get? We got a guy, the oil guy, Bill Herrick of Midwest Energy Partners, is going to be with us to answer all the pertinent questions on oil, on gas, including some tricks that might help you find cheaper gas. That is next. You're watching Rob Kendall Show.
Your bathroom fan could be secretly costing you thousands of dollars in damages. Most people don't even know this until the damage is done. With over 18 years of bathroom remodeling experience, here are 3 signs your fan is failing you without spending a dime on inspections. Sign number 1 is if you have foggy mirrors after you shower. This shows that your fan isn't pulling out enough moisture, which creates the perfect environment for mold. If you have a properly functioning bathroom fan that is the right size for your space, you shouldn't see much fogginess on your bathroom mirror at all. Sign number 2 is if you have bubbling, cracking, or peeling paint in your bathroom. This means moisture is soaking into your walls, slowly breaking down drywall, and even causing the wood framing behind it to rot. Sign number 3 is if you have mold buildup on your fan, ceilings, or walls. This is terrible for your health, but also could wreck your bathroom, costing you a fortune. If you're noticing any of these signs, here's what you can do.
Call Vent Savvy today at 317-300-4434. That's 317-300-4434 and mention Rob for a free attic inspection.
Hey guys, it's Rob Kendall. Thanks so much for checking out the Rob Kendall Show. And remember, please like, share, and subscribe, and tell your friends about us. If you own a business or you're in charge of making decisions for your business, we'd love to get to know you. We'd love to learn more about what you do and how here at the Rob Kendall Show, we can help you get your word out to a very loyal group of people. Because, you know, that's what we have with viewers on the Rob Kendall Show, a really loyal group of people. Send us an email, sales@robkendallshow.com, sales@robkendallshow.com. And I look forward to getting back in touch with you to learn more about your business and how the Rob Kendall Show can help you grow. Oil has skyrocketed. It has caused gas to do the same. What is the future at the pump? Let's find out. You're watching The Rob Kendall Show. Don't forget the website, robkendallshow.com. Joined in studio, we got a guy for everything. The oil guy, owner, Midwest Energy Partners, the great Bill Herrick. Bill, hello.
Good morning. How are you?
All right, so your background, you're qualified to tell us all about oil because that's what you do for a living is you get oil out of the ground.
That's what we do. Yes, sir.
And you don't look like a Bond villain.
No, not really. No, not really. No, but gas is a little bit different story. And I heard you talking about that this morning on how much gas has increased over the last, last 3 weeks. And I thought, I'd maybe start out with talking a little bit about how the consumer can really save some money.
Yeah.
Because
real quick before I do that though.
Yeah.
So tell everybody. So you literally, your company,
Yep.
Your job is like you have wells, they go in the ground, pull oil out and you sell it.
That's correct. We drill oil wells in southern Indiana and Illinois. And right now we operate about 250 wells. And
do you go see them?
I don't personally. Now, when we drill a new well, I'll typically go down and watch that process for a couple of days. But normally, there's no real need for me to. We've got an operator that really does all the work, hard work.
And we've had you on in the past, and we've said, look, nobody cries for you when oil's down at $40 a barrel.
Right.
Nobody cries for you. So
no,
we shouldn't hate you now though when it's gone up.
No, well, last year was terrible. I mean, we when Trump came in office, it was like I think $78 a barrel, and we were down in the mid 50s just before Christmas. So I was on a street corner most of the time, but no, it's, the reality is I've got 10 wells right now we want to drill that we know are going to be good wells, but we need to have a sustained price of around $80 to $85 to really, make sure the return's there for our investors. And even though it's jumped up to, close to 100 in the last couple of days, it's not, we have no idea. We have no idea. And that's really kind of the biggest.
You get a war every week.
Right. It's the uncertainty of things is just, wearing on everybody. So, I wish like heck, I don't want to make money on people getting killed, but at the same time, the oil industry needs to have prices that are in that $70 to $80 range to really, make things work.
Bill Herrick, Midwest Energy Partners, is our guest. All right, so this is what we want to know. How long do you foresee the price of oil being where it's at? Do you think it's going to go higher? What does that mean for gas?
Well, I think it is a great uncertainty, right? I mean, I'll use an analogy to one of our favorite pastimes, betting on golf.
That's right.
Cam
Young coming up big for me.
Yeah, he did great. But it's like, okay, you can use your background and knowledge and say, okay, this player is getting hot, or this player's, really been dogging it the last few weeks or whatever, or this guy always plays well on this golf course or whatever, and use some general knowledge on trying to understand about where who you think you're going to bet on for that particular tournament. In this case, it's in the war issue, it's wide open, and trying to figure out, again, are we going to be looking at $60 oil prices in 3 months, or are we going to look at $150 oil and oil and gas shortages in the next 3 to 6 months if this thing continues? And honestly, no one has an idea. I mean, I can guarantee Trump doesn't have an idea. We don't have an idea.
That's concerning. He doesn't know.
No, I mean, it's like, he'll come out and say, well, we got all the Iranian, ships are all, sunk, and the aircrafts are blown to smithereens. But, the reality is that, well, they're still hitting targets. Dubai was hit with another one over the weekend and had to close the airport down. So, I mean, it's like, who knows when this thing is going to end. And for as long as that Strait of Hormuz is closed, 20% of the oil is just off the market. So we're, this could, my fear is this is going to go on for a very long time.
Bill Herrick is our guest, owner, operator, Midwest Energy Partners. Okay, Bill, so you talked about how you can save money at the pump.
Yeah.
And people just probably, their ears perked up and said, stop burying the lead here, Rob.
Yeah.
Let him tell us how he can save money at the pump. Go.
Yeah. So, Speedway, at least as for your Indianapolis listeners, Speedway is the big gorilla.
Yeah.
They own 80% of the market.
They're like on every corner.
Right. And yesterday morning, I don't know if you know this or not, they just jacked prices up again to $3.89 a gallon from $3.59 over the weekend. So
it goes up so fast, but it never seems to come down as fast.
No, well, that's the part of the game. And again, I'm not an expert on the gas market. I'm in the oil side, but what they do is they'll jack the prices up, like I said, 30 cents a gallon or whatever, and then they'll slowly bring prices back down if they start seeing that consumers aren't really buying gasoline like they normally should. But in this case, it's not going to go back down, or if it does, it won't stay down very long. So what happens is that everyone else, all the independents, will follow their price, but they don't follow necessarily right away. So, what you need to watch the Speedway gas station prices. And if you notice that they like on Monday, they jack prices up, to $3.89. I saw that driving in this morning to your studio. And there's a Get and Go that I go right by every morning. They've got a discount card that you can get. They charge your account instead of running a card through a merchant processor, and they save money that way. So their price was $3.35. Their discount with using their card was $3.05. So I filled up my Escalade at $3.05, versus $3.89.
Thing burns a lot of gas.
25
Big
gallons.
savings.
25 gallons. So I think I saved close to $20 on one fill up, and I do that every week. So my point is, you just have to pay attention. Those other retailers will at some point increase their prices up to where Speedway is, but not necessarily all the time. But you just really need to be a little more cognizant of what's going on in the marketplace.
Okay, Bill Herrick, Midwest Energy Partners, is our guest. Trump came out last week, said he's going to take 172 million barrels out of the strategic reserves, 400 million by the world community. You've told us in the past on another platform that don't make any difference.
No, and the market ignored it, and the world surplus that they were going to draw down, again, the response was very tepid. And so it's really getting these tankers back out on the ocean and getting them to the market is what's going to be the key thing. And a lot of these guys just aren't they're not floating their boats. They're not. They're just keeping them docked at saying, no, we're not. The risk is too high. These drones can come from anywhere, and we're just not going to take the risk. So my concern is, like I said, the longer this thing goes, if we don't get some resolution soon, I think then we have a real chance of getting certainly over $4 gasoline and certainly over $100 oil. But you start running into, and again, you weren't even born yet, so I don't even, it's not my fault about this, but, back in 1973, when we ran out of gasoline, because of the Iran situation, people weren't concerned about paying $2, $3, $4 a gallon. They just wanted gasoline.
Right.
And that could very well be where we're back at. It might be a case where we don't mind paying $4, $5, or $6 a gallon as long as we can get it. And we may not be able to get it if things continue.
Okay, so like with the stock market, they always tell you you're in it for the long haul. Don't look at it every day. Don't panic. You're in the oil market. You got to look at it every day, right? You
absolutely.
Examine it every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But it's the way our market is that we have each well produces X barrels a day. We know what it costs to operate those wells. So as long as as long as we're getting more income than we're spending on keeping those wells running, it's a good day. You talked about what the price has to be for you to get more oil out of the ground. Walk us through that, because I think people struggle to understand how oil energy production actually works in this country. Well, yeah, and a lot of it is the fact that we're so capital intensive. It's to drill a well in Indiana or Illinois, it's roughly now between $800,000 and $1 million, depending on how deep you're going to go. What do you have to get a permit from somebody to do that? You buy the land like, this is mine now, I'm going. Yeah, no, you got to go through a pretty long permitting process, and is that the state? The state does that. Yeah, the state DNRs have that charge of doing that. But generally speaking, that's not horrible. But you got to get a permit, and then you've got to have a workforce that's going to be assembled to be able to drill the well, and the equipment to do the well, and everything's expensive. Labor has gone up like crazy. Steel's gone up like crazy. So again, just even 3 years ago, we could drill the same well for $500,000, and it's now costing us $800,000 to $1 million. Is that the tariffs? Is that causing that? Like what? It's just inflation. No, in general? It's just inflation in general. Yeah, a lot of it's in labor, but the problem is now we haven't drilled a well in 2 years because prices were so lousy, so those drillers, they aren't working, so they've been going off to find other jobs and do whatever else. So even getting a crew assembled is a tough challenge. I may need a job soon. Yeah, well, there you go. Me too. Yeah. So there's just a lot of challenges. So people think, you just stick a hole in the ground and you're, and out pops oil, and you're, it's like the Beverly Hillbillies, and the reality is you can stick a hole in the ground, and you can have the best geologists and the best equipment in the world, and you get a dry hole. Yeah. Because it's just the way it is. You can't physically see down in the ground 5,000 feet. So what should the price of gas be? Like, what's reasonable? Like, I'm sure it's going to be higher than what I would want it to be, but what, like in a perfect ecosystem where everything is working well? Yeah, I mean, I think when oil's in the mid 60s or maybe up to 75, gasoline's typically going to be around $3.50 a gallon. That to me is kind of the perfect world. When you start looking at, oil starting to hit $75 to $85, then you're looking at oil closer to 40. You're looking at gas closer to $4 a barrel, or $4 a gallon.
Yeah,
I got barrels and gallons. I'm gonna always get that confused. So that's the challenge, is that you can't have both. Is the bottom line, I guess. You can't have cheap oil and cheap gas, because it won't last for very long. You're not going to have people drilling new wells to provide for gasoline. The thing is that people don't understand as well is that there's over 6,000 products that oil goes into.
Yeah. It's not just your car.
No, it's it's shingles in your house. It's women's lingerie.
Yeah,
it's lipstick for ladies.
Thanks for all you're doing, Bill.
Thank you. Well, my point is that when oil takes a big jump like it has,
give you a Sagamore.
Yeah, I should have one. That when oil takes a big jump like this, it's a very inflationary oriented thing, because it's not just hitting you on gas and diesel fuel. It's hitting on all these other products. So it's a big problem.
A couple minutes left here with Bill Herrick, Midwest Energy Partners. So there was an article in The Hill that the Trump administration went at a bunch of these news outlets. I think CNN was one of them, trying to report, well, they hadn't pondered the idea that the Iranians would shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And they were like, well, we totally did ponder it. I was thinking that, reading that, going, well, that kind of makes you look worse that you pondered it and was like, well, screw it. We know the gas is going to go up. We're going to do it anyway. Right. Do you get the feeling that when it comes to energy policy, like, you're in the business, do you know what the Trump administration's energy policy actually is? No,
I don't have a clue. Although I will say this, they announced last week that they're building, they have the financing apparently and the government support for a new refinery I believe it's in Alabama. And it will actually be the first refinery that will process U.S. crude oil. And that's the problem. We don't, we have this problem where the crude oil that comes out of our wells is light sweet crude oil. And the refineries we have down on the Gulf Coast process what we call sour oil or heavy sour oil, which is actually the oil that Venezuela produces. And it is a little strange that, we had a military intervention in Venezuela, and now we have one with Iran. They're the first and third largest, U.S. First and third largest sour crude producers in the world. Coincidence? I don't know. Maybe not. But the bottom line is that we could get a whole lot of new sour crude oil coming in from Venezuela. If in fact they got their wells up to speed, but they, ever since they kicked the United States out in 1976, the wells have gone to they need about $80 billion in investments to get those things turned around.
All right, I'll get you out of here with this. A month from now, we'll be having you back on, and you'll be saying, well, that was a momentary blip in time and everything's back to normal. Or we'll be saying, well, Jason and I are going to have to carpool to work. Like, what are we doing? What do you think is going to be happening?
Yeah, my feeling is that it's like kind of like the ending of World War II. I don't know how Trump can say it's a successful operation if we don't get a government that supports the United States. If they're not pro-U.S., and I don't know how we do that without having boots on their soil. Yeah. And so that's my biggest question: is how do we get what we want out of this to really happen? And you can just, it's great that we wiped out all their military facilities, but the reality is they'll just get them back again if we don't, take over their leadership. And again, I don't know how we do that without coming in and actually having boots on the ground. It's like I said, it's just like World War II. Germany would have gone back to what they were doing, if we hadn't come in and the Soviets hadn't come in and basically just took control. And one of the problems that we have is that, the Iranians, like a lot of countries, didn't allow them, citizens to have guns. Yeah. So you've got a very unarmed, group of people that, love the United States. Is very clear with all the celebrations they had about, a couple of weeks ago when we started doing this. But the reality is that the bad guys have all the guns and weapons.
Well, I'm going to end up paying for it no matter what. Bill Herrick, oil expert, Midwest Energy Partners. Thank you, my friend.
You bet.
You're watching Rob Kendall Show.
Buying a home or thinking about refinancing? Work with someone local who understands the central Indiana market. Gary Tedrow with Verity Mortgage helps homebuyers and homeowners explore options for purchasing, refinancing, or even consolidating higher interest debt through their mortgage. Gary's approach is simple, clear advice, and personalized guidance so you can make confident decisions. Visit loansbygary.homes to learn more or get started today. You've got nothing to lose but dollars on your mortgage payment. So call for a free, no-obligation quote, 317-695-5179. Gary Tedrow, NMLS number 179207 with Verity Mortgage, NMLS number 70345, an equal housing opportunity lender.
Are you seeing cracks in mortar, moisture working through walls, facade or structural failure beginning to surface? Bramwell Mackay sets the standard for exterior and structural building solutions. Our 40-year master masons and industry experts address moisture intrusion, failing foundations, masonry deterioration, and more. From preserving historic landmarks to addressing modern building envelope issues, Bramwell Mackay delivers full-spectrum service with white-glove professionalism. In Indianapolis, call 812-33-BRICK. 812-33-BRICK.
Are you a Clay County resident who is ready to be part of creating a brighter future for our citizens? Doug Cobb is running for county commissioner and will bring fresh perspective to the table. A local farm and business owner, he has skin in the game of our county's success. He knows that a great team can accomplish so much more than any one of us alone and is ready to create a brighter future for Clay County together. The committee to elect Doug Cobb approves this ad. Paid for by Linda Cheatham.
Hey guys, welcome back. Rob Kendall Show. Don't forget the website, robkendallshow.com. We got the live link there. We've got the on-demand feed there. We've got transcripts of some of our favorite segments each day. And we got that support button. And man, Bill generously donated yesterday. People every day giving us money, supporting the show, throwing a few coins our way, helps us do the things we need to do to get the show rolling for you guys. There is a support button, $1, $10, whatever it is. If you like the show, if you say, hey, I don't own a business or run a business, I just want to show support to what you guys are doing, hit that support button, robkendallshow.com. That's where you can be a part of the show with us. A couple of other reminders. Hey, we're getting really close to 1,800 subscribers on our YouTube channel. We'd love to get to that by the end of the day. If you haven't, you can play a huge role in that. Just hit that subscribe button. And hit that thumbs up button. If you're watching us now, there's hundreds of you watching. Hit that thumbs up button. It's so simple to do. It helps us out immensely. Okay, so it popped up on the Facebook, your Facebook feeds. There's a memories button where you can go back. I actually think this is pretty cool. One of the neat things about Facebook, and it's starting to come into fruition as Facebook. Well, let's see, 2000s, 2010s, it's in the middle of, Facebook's in the middle of its third decade. Facebook has been around for 20 years now. And I remember the first time I ever saw Facebook. Most of you know, when you had to have Facebook originally, you had to have a college email. That was the policing on the Facebook, right? You had to have a college email. And I will never forget the girl's house that I was at. She had just gotten on Facebook. She shows it to me. I'm like, what in the world is this? And then, the big thing became you had to check, and you would check on almost a daily basis whether your college got added to the Facebook list, whether that you could enter your college email and get a Facebook account. And I will never forget that. And so one of the things Facebook is now becoming is sort of the modern day photo album. Obviously you have your phone, you can save them to your various storage mechanisms. If you're still really an old timer like me, you still print photos out and put them in albums. But Facebook is becoming sort of the ultimate photo album, scrapbook, diary, for lack of a better term, where you can go back and look at things that happened 20 years ago now. If you were on Facebook then, or 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, you can go back each day and see what you were doing in your life if you in some way noted it on Facebook. And I noticed that today was the 1-year anniversary of our property tax rally at the State House. It's hard to believe, man. It's been 1 year since 1,000 of us gathered in the State House protesting out of control property taxes, trying to get our lawmakers to do something about helping us, and really, when you get right down to it, helping the most vulnerable amongst us afford to stay in their homes. Look, property taxes are immoral. The government has nothing to do with you buying your house. It has nothing to do with you paying your mortgage. That is your home, and you never actually own it. It's never actually yours, because anytime you don't pay your property taxes, the government can take it away from you at any moment. And let's face it, our system is completely screwed up, as we touched on earlier. It de-incentivizes stability. It de-incentivizes investment in your home, investment in your community, because some guy down the street from you bails out and sells his home, and you get punished for it with higher property taxes. That's the system we're in. That's the way the assessment process works, based on what previous homes have previously sold for around you. And I think about where we were a year ago, where, let's face it, we all at that moment had some faith and some optimism that Mike Braun was going to do the right thing. I mean, we had to drag him kicking and screaming into the property tax fight, the governor of Indiana. But our show at the time, I mean, that's how powerful what we did was and what we're doing now is. I mean, think about how this show has grown so quickly in such a short period of time. There's people in the podcasting world who are contacting me going, how are you doing this? I'm like, it's not me. It's you guys. It's our listeners. It's our viewers. And don't forget, if you miss any of the show live here on YouTube, you can check it out wherever you get your podcast. It's posted to all the platforms. That is growing by leaps and bounds too. Some people are just, hey, I want to listen. Apple, Spotify, all the places. You can get the Rob Kendall Show podcast there. The property tax rally, just like the growth of this show, was a pat on the back to you guys and your passion for better government. And I think about what a horrible turn that took. And maybe it never actually took a turn, right? And you're probably right. I'm probably right in saying maybe this was always where it was going to go. Because I don't think Braun was ever serious about fixing property taxes, because he didn't have a passion for it, because he's so rich he doesn't feel the pain. There's not enough of our lawmakers that understand us. There's not enough of our lawmakers that feel our pain, to steal a phrase from Bill Clinton, that feel the daily struggles that we go through. And when you have someone like Braun, who could be worth as much as $100 million or more, so what? My property taxes went up $1,000 or $500 or whatever. He doesn't even know it. And so you don't have the investment from our lawmakers, the top lawmaker. Although that day, right, for those of you who were there that day, when he rolled around that corner, Braun agreed to. So let me remind everybody of how this all went down. So I decided we were going to have this property tax rally, and decided as a tribute. Really, the property tax rally to me was a tribute to the great property tax reform that was achieved in 2008 and 2010. And what happened, those were primarily achieved because of now infamous rallies that took place across Indianapolis and at the State House. And that property tax fight, like, I was a college kid at that time in 2007. I remember this vividly. That was one of the first times I'd always been a voter. I'd always been an active participant in terms of doing my quote unquote civic duty, but I didn't know much about it. I, believed Republicans wore the white hats and Democrats wore the black hats, and that's how I voted until 2007. And I remember reading in the physical paper at the time, that's how long ago this was, the physical paper with the Indy Star about these rallies. I remember seeing them, the infancy of social media covering them and thinking, wow, this is cool. What are these people so fired up about? And that's the first time I started learning about how much people actually paid in property taxes. Look, I was an idiot college kid. I didn't know, other than being a renter, right? I didn't understand how it worked. And it became sort of my charge of my professional life, which was to try to do what I could to talk about and fix property taxes. It's why, as an elected official, that was my top priority. That's what I did, was cut property tax rates. I walked the walk and talked the talk, and so much of that came out of 2007 and 2008, learning about the passion that these people had to fix property taxes, and to some extent, they did in the moment. Obviously, the assessments and the issues that have caused them to rise were not addressed. The referendums were not properly addressed. But that part of why I had that property tax rally was a tribute and a throwback and an homage, if you will, to those people of 2007 and 2008 that made such a difference. And you guys responded. You came out. And so we decided we were going to have this rally. We partnered with the lieutenant governor's office at the time. And, we had these speakers, state reps, local officials. And the big one was, would the governor participate? Because obviously he had claimed it was his top priority. It is what he had heard about across the state. And it took a little pushing, but they finally agreed to participate. And I don't think they had any anticipation of how big that thing was going to be. I think they thought, okay, it's going to be some small little deal. We're going to show up. And he turned that corner, and I saw him do it. Braun comes out, he turns the corner, and he is taken aback by the amount of people there. He was blown away by the people there. And I think he got caught up in the moment. I think he got so into how passionate you guys were at that property tax rally that he said a bunch of things that ended up being the beginning of the end for him. Because I'm not sure he ever fully intended to follow through on property tax reform. I think he thought, well, we'll throw it out there and then I'll appease Kendall and it'll act like I did something, and then it failed, and hey, we tried. But that day when he rolled up his sleeves and he started doing the fight stuff, he did it to himself. He made everybody there believe that day, hey, this guy really is going to be a fighter for us. And that's why so many people got so angry when he folded. It's not that he failed. It's that he didn't fight. He being Braun didn't do what he promised to do on that day, which is roll up his sleeves and fight for us. And then when you see how he did fight for redistricting, he did the stuff on redistricting that we begged him to do on property taxes, which is don't accept no for an answer, stand up to these guys, run ads against them, threaten to primary them, call a special session, and then if it fails, it fails. What they did on redistricting is exactly what we asked him to do on property taxes. And I told Braun that day when I met with him at state party headquarters, it was Braun and Josh Kelly, his chief of staff, and Micah and his chief of staff. And I told them, I begged them, I said, do not sign this bill. Do not cut this deal. Do not sign this bill. Veto it. Call the special session. And then even if you fail, people will see you as a hero. They didn't want to listen. And Braun has never recovered from that because everybody saw what Braun really was. A guy who writes checks with his mouth that his actions cannot cash. And all that did for us is make us stronger. The reason we're doing so well today, you guys saw who had your back. You guys saw through that whole process. And there are people still out there who go, well, you're the one who told us to vote for Braun. Yeah, I tried to fix property taxes for you guys. Sorry about that. You notice I haven't done it since. I wanted that fixed so badly for you guys that I was willing to work with the guy who I knew what Braun was. I knew what he was when he was a senator. We were super critical of him as a senator. I believed, and I thought that property tax rally that day, I thought, okay, this is paying off. I said, if we can just keep this guy in the fold, if we can just keep him on the team, in the tent, going forward with property tax as a top priority, there's no way he'll screw himself over and stab us in the back. But I was wrong. He did screw himself over, and he did stab us in the back, and he's never recovered from it, and he's never going to recover from it, and he will be a one-term governor. I'm sure. And look, he's not. What has it been since then for Braun? It's been one bad news after another. Why? Because nobody's giving him the benefit of the doubt. Nobody's giving him the benefit of the doubt because he lied. And we've caught him lying on numerous things, which I knew that's what he was, but naively believed by sheer, I don't know, will or force or whatever, I could fix the issue for you guys. And I'm sorry it came up short, but man, that was a heck of a day. That was one of the best days of my life. If you take away, which I can on that, if you take away the end result, what that meant to be there, now obviously, birth of my daughter, et cetera, above that. But I'm saying in terms of professionally, the things I've done, to be able to pay tribute to all of those people that got so much in 2007 and 2008, and many of them came back, and those that were still with us, some of them tragically are not. I mean, it's almost 20 years ago now. And like, I mentioned this the other day. There was a veteran who was there, a World War II vet, 99 years old. He lived to be 100. He recently passed away. In fact, his daughter just sent me a photo of them from the property tax rally. He made damn sure in a wheelchair he was going to be there. He made sure, he said, I am going to be here for this. And like seeing things like that and remembering that, that was just so touching. So thank you to everyone who was a part of that rally that day, people who were there in spirit, people who sent well wishes, obviously those of you who showed up. I will never forget that. And it's one of the reasons that when we had to change platforms, I decided to do this and do this so quickly. I knew the passion that's out there. I knew the passion that existed. I saw it in person, and I knew no matter where we ended up, that you guys would come find us. We just had to figure out a way to make it look good. That's where we brought Jason in. And he's done a phenomenal job with that. I knew the content would be good. We just had to make this look good. And trust me, making me look good is not an easy thing to do. But Jason does it very well. So we're going to keep the fight up. We're going to keep the passion up. This show's continuing to grow. You are the reason it's continuing to grow. So again, please help us do that by sharing the feed, subscribing to the channel, giving us that thumbs up. All of those things help us. Let me tell you about my friends at Bramwell Mackay. Masonry color mismatch. Previous repair catching your eye, not happy with the brick color on your home, and ready for a total makeover. Bramwell Mackay Property Services and Consultants offer specialized masonry, staining, and recoloring. Whether you want to seamlessly blend repairs or completely transform your home's exterior. Want to build something new? Bramwell Mackay's 40-year master masons design and construct custom patios, sidewalks, outdoor summer kitchens, archways, entryways, and more. Bramwell Mackay, BRAMWELLMCKAY.com. Beauty built to endure. I saw this story from WTHR. Where is it at? By the way, so you guys wonder how I do the show each day? This is how it works. Now, when I was in my bedroom, I was just physically writing notes. I literally just write a bunch of stuff down. It ends up being on about 6 to 8 pages. That are just notes from articles that I read, and then boom, here it is. This is what I do. Boom, right here. Here you go. This is the 2-hour award-winning beloved program that you watch or listen to each day. That's literally how it is, and that's what we do. Okay, so I saw this article from WTHR. Where is it? There it is. Boom. About how much debt Americans have taken on. This is bad. According to this WTHR article, credit card balances in the past year have totaled to $1.39 trillion in debt. That's according to the Federal Reserve. Across the country, Americans have totaled up $1.39 trillion in credit card debt. That's roughly $11,500 per person. Now, obviously, not every person has $11,500 of credit card debt. So that means some people have a lot more than that. Now, one thing that's staggering to me, John Kiernan from Wallet Hub said adjusted for inflation, that staggering number is still about 9% below the all-time record. So obviously with inflation, the number gets higher, but that's still 9% below the all-time record. Look, we can say, and rightfully so, the problems we have with government and the debt that they're racking up, $35 trillion in debt for our country, unsustainable. And we should be critical of that. But we got to have a long look in the mirror, because when each one of us has on average $11,500 of credit card debt, that is unsustainable. You're also not going to pay that off anytime soon if you're raking up that level of debt. And then, of course, the debt becomes the profit machine, and you never get out of it because of the interest. Like, once you start, it's like, was it Pringles? Once you start, you just can't stop. Or was that Lay's? Who was that? It was a potato chip company. Lay's, yeah. Once you start, you just can't stop. That's the way credit card debt works. It's why credit card companies entice you to take out credit cards. People like me who pay them off every month, they don't make any money off of me. I am a net negative. I mean, I am so attentive to my credit card bill. Like, I know the day it's coming in the mail each month. And if it doesn't come that day, I get super nervous. And then I pay them off immediately. I grew up, my grandparents, they were cash only people because they were people of the Depression. They never even used credit cards. I don't even think I ever saw my grandparents use a credit card. So I was very, especially younger, I didn't either. And then once you got in a world where this is why the credit card companies give you the points and the cash back for using the credit card. So finally I reached a point as an adult. It was like, okay, I'm so on top of this, right? That I'm never going to let myself get to where I'm not paying it. If somebody's going to hand you free money, you might as well take it. But so many people, they're not either capable of doing it or they're not dedicated enough to do it on top of it. And so then you get in this never-ending cycle of adding debt, and the debt is interest, and then you're paying off the interest, and you're not able to get to the principal. And it's a never-ending cycle, and it can cause depression and anxiety and all sorts of things for people who get into this. And so I come back to a couple of things. One, I think the condition of the economy is causing some of this, that people are not having the access to cash like they normally did, jobs, et cetera, rising wages not keeping up with inflation. But I also think it's financial literacy, and financial literacy is financial discipline. And I fault the education system for not ingraining into people. Look, nobody told me any of this. When I was a kid, when I was growing up, there was none of this. Like, they barely taught you how to write a check. I don't even think they still do that anymore. We've got to start instilling in young people. I'm talking the 16, 17 years old, before you even can get access to a credit card, the pitfalls of not having financial discipline. Now, some people get hit with things that are beyond their control, medical bills, et cetera. But there's a whole lot of people who got the iPhone, who got the finest Nike sneakers, and then they've got thousands of dollars they own credit cards. That is insanity. They've got to learn this. We've got to start teaching this. We've got to start ingraining this in people to be disciplined with their money, not go into debt, not rack up these horrible credit card bills, because $1.39 trillion for our country in credit card debt, that's bad. Just like our country being $35 trillion in debt is bad. All right, long segment to wrap up the show. Jason is going to read some of the best YouTube comments of the day. Plus, we're going to have Jason do double duty. There was a story I read yesterday about somebody winning big money, but I'm not sure if it really is big money. And so I'm actually going to ask you guys to participate in this as well. I'm going to ask you what you would do. You know what? Yeah, we'll do that when we come back. I'm going to ask you what you would do with this amount of money, how it would change your life. We'll take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Long segment to wrap up the show. You're watching Rob Kendall Show.
Buying a home or thinking about refinancing? Work with someone local who understands the central Indiana market. Gary Tedrow with Verity Mortgage helps homebuyers and homeowners explore options for purchasing, refinancing, or even consolidating higher interest debt through their mortgage. Gary's approach is simple, clear advice, and personalized guidance so you can make confident decisions. Visit loansbygary.homes to learn more or get started today. You've got nothing to lose but dollars on your mortgage payment. So call for a free, no-obligation quote, 317-695-5179. Gary Tedrow, NMLS number 179207 with Verity Mortgage, NMLS number 70345, an equal housing opportunity lender.
Are you seeing cracks in mortar, moisture working through walls, facade or structural failure beginning to surface? Bramwell Mackay sets the standard for exterior and structural building solutions. Our 40-year master masons and industry experts address moisture intrusion, failing foundations, masonry deterioration, and more. From preserving historic landmarks to addressing modern building envelope issues, Bramwell Mackay delivers full-spectrum service with white-glove professionalism. In Indianapolis, call 812-33-BRICK. 812-33-BRICK.
Are you a Clay County resident who is ready to be part of creating a brighter future for our citizens? Doug Cobb is running for county commissioner and will bring fresh perspective to the table. A local farm and business owner, he has skin in the game of our county's success. He knows that a great team can accomplish so much more than any one of us alone and is ready to create a brighter future for Clay County together. The committee to elect Doug Cobb approves this ad. Paid for by Linda Cheatham.
Hey guys, welcome back. Rob Kendall Show. Don't forget the website, robkendallshow.com. robkendallshow.com. You can also find us there, live stream podcast of the program, the transcripts, and the support button if you want to be a part of the show, robkendallshow.com. Now we're going to bring producer Jason in just a moment. Are you on the TV?
I'm already on.
Oh, you're already on the screen.
Yeah. When you said bring producer Jason in, I jumped right
Okay,
in.
very good. Well, before we have you read the favorite comments of the day, because I think this will maybe spur some comments.
All right.
I saw this article, and I want you to participate with me on this. This was from Fox 59. A woman in Bedford won part of the Powerball. You ever
big money.
Are you a lottery player?
A couple times a year, maybe.
I've never heard you talk about all your
I'm not. My dad used to play all the time. I assume he would win and take care of the family, but he never did.
Work out. Okay.
Left it up to me.
So we've had this conversation, like if you won the big Powerball, like, $300 million, what would you do with it? What's the first things? Da-da-da-da-da, right? And I think the more interesting conversation is like this lady, and I was kind of surprised this lady even made the news for this.
Mm-hmm.
She won $50,000. So she didn't win the whole thing, right? And I was thinking about $50,000, and they asked this woman.
Well, you don't get the 50. See, everybody has that conversation. Well, but when you take the taxes out, you take the cash, you take, what is it, like 25?
I don't know, right?
But
let's just say for the sake of this conversation,
right,
it is $50,000.
Okay.
Let's just say that was what goes into your bank. And you're right? It's probably not $50,000.
Right. So it kind of changes the whole.
Right. But just for the point of this conversation,
you shouldn't have brought me in.
Let's say it's $50,000. By the way, her name. What was her name? Her name is it Sonia? Yeah, Sonia.
Mm-hmm.
And she is her only real hobby that she listed was she's got a '69 Ford Torino GT Fastback that she's renovating.
Okay.
So I got to thinking, like, what would you actually do with $50,000? Because that's a lot of money. That's not life-altering money. Like you're not
well,
retiring.
For somebody that's recently unemployed, that could probably get you through a few months, I would think.
But what would you do? Would you if you won $50,000?
Mm-hmm.
Would you be like, okay, like if you're boring like me, you're just putting in your savings account or some interest bearing thing?
I'd probably just donate it to the Rob Kendall Show.
What would you do with if you got
$50,000? I thought you were going to say like $500 million or $50 million.
I send you the template.
50,000. As I was looking, I was like, "What is this 50,000?" Well, again, you got to consider the taxes because 25,000 is a big difference than 50,000.
That's true.
So with 25 grand, if you're a homeowner, I mean, you've got eventually your AC furnace is going to go out. There's 12 grand, right? Water heater's going to go out.
Right.
Another couple grand.
Now, luckily, we got a plumber coming on next week as a sponsor. He'd be able to fix all this for people.
You got stuff. Your vents got to be fixed. Things like that. Your foundation cracks. So, that'd be great to have that because you put it back and there's your expenses, I guess, to get the house fixed up so you can sell it eventually. But, 25 grand's a lot of money, but when you put it in those type of terms, it's okay, great. I've got my furnace paid for.
I'd almost be tempted if it were 25 grand after taxes. Now 50 grand's a different story.
But I'd almost do something with.
I'd almost be tempted if I got 25 grand just to like splurge on something.
No, like a pizza. You'd actually get 2 toppings on your pizza instead of just pepperoni.
So I'm curious.
Rob, look, I'm rich.
What would people do if you won 50 grand? If 50 grand went into your bank account, what would you do with it? Would you spend it? Would you buy something you would never buy before? Would you save it? What would you do? Because 50 grand, like there was a time where 50 grand was a lot of money. It's
there's people that would give 10% to the church. Is that what tithing is?
Yeah, it's tithing.
10%.
Yes.
All right. See, that cuts it down even more.
That's true. That's true, right? Okay, so let us know.
Expense I would have
in the YouTube chat. I know where you'd go.
All right,
with
we'll
your
get back
50 grand.
to it. So leave the comments and we'll get those covered here.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm looking. We'll get those covered here in a little bit.
Do you want to go ahead and read some of your favorite comments
I'm here.
of the day? Go ahead.
All right. Well,
You've already butted in.
I
was
invited in.
Teed up for you. So, by the way, real quick, every day Jason monitors the YouTube comments. He picks some of his favorites to read. You do have to be a subscriber in order to comment. So if you're hearing us, if you're seeing us and you haven't, it's so easy to subscribe and hit the thumbs up button, and then you can participate with the fabulous people, our little community over here, who's a part of the YouTube chat every day.
Even though we've been told this is a lame segment.
I think people love it. One of our sponsors who's coming on next week is specifically sponsoring. He loves the YouTube.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
All right, let's get started. Andy Engel, man, what a nice looking shirt, Rob. You must have a job interview today.
So my mom. Okay, so
we have to go through that every day.
Well, no. Here's what happened. Okay, So I made the mistake. My mom takes everything literally. And I told her that because I did laundry on my own. I do all my own laundry except for the shirts. My mom does the shirts. That's why they look so nice.
Right.
I told my mom, I made a joke. I said I was running short on shirts, so I'd accidentally washed one of my dress shirts. It was in with all the other shirts. And I said, yeah, I was running low on shirts because the cleaning lady didn't get here. And then my mom became convinced that I was running short on shirts when she has given me so many nice shirts that she went on and bought me more new shirts. And thus, this is one of my new shirts that my mom got me.
Nice. It looks nice on camera.
They're great shirts. They're fabulous. I do this with my mom sometimes because she's phenomenal. She loves me so much that I make jokes and then she goes out and buys me stuff. And it was like, I have plenty of shirts.
Like you're a comedian.
Yeah.
Well, Angela Levin points out, though, it is not a green shirt, Rob.
That's right. I did wear a green jacket, though. Does that count?
No, because it's not on screen. However, I pointed out in the chat that we do have the little green little button on the mic thing that you can't see.
Oh, yeah.
I changed that from pink to green.
That's right.
It was pink for the first couple
You were
weeks.
very concerned about it being
it's
pink.
St. Patrick's Day, so now it is green. MLM, okay, let's get talking about Kmart. MLM Warriors, Kmart bought Sears, and then Kevin Branham pointed out that, yes, and then Lowe's, Sears used to have the Craftsman tools. My dad, let's go to Sears, I got to buy a wrench.
That's right.
And Kevin Branham points out that Lowe's owns Craftsman tools now, which for us old-timers, I didn't know that. So
remember, okay, so is Sears done too, or is there still a Sears?
I think are there still some Sears?
So
I don't know. Penny's is gone, aren't they?
So Kmart got bought by Sears. Sears got bought by Lowe's, basically, or is that?
I'm not sure. The Lowe's bought Craftsman tools.
Oh, Craftsman. Okay, I think Sears may be done.
All Sears had was the.
Well, remember, okay, so for those of you who don't know, Jason and I used to own a radio station together in just outside of Wilmington. It was in a little self-sustained city, and it was like sort of the land that time forgot. Remember, they had
a Radio Shack there.
They had a radio.
Awesome. It was like that was like a Toys R Us for us.
There was a strip mall that there was a Radio Shack. Remember, the guy was on the city board that owned the Radio Shack, and next to it was a Sears. Do you remember this? There was like a standalone Sears, and we were like, it's like Marty McFly going back in time, right? We were like, awesome. What world are we living in where this place has a standalone Radio Shack and a Sears? Like that was the last Sears I remember seeing.
Right. I think we got our little refrigerator from there. All right, so continuing on, Maddox 2323. We do now we're into the data centers.
Yeah.
We do not need them. This has all been working well without them. Technology does have to advance, and right now we are on a product of Google. A lot of people don't know Google owns YouTube.
Right.
And plus half the podcasting platforms out there. So for us, it's kind of a well, you got to have the monster in order to operate.
Well, here's the thing that I think I struggle with, too, because it's like we talked about. You see these memes and stuff people create that there's no value to society whatsoever in those other than like it's entertaining you to make them. I think people would say, hey, creating an environment by which free speech can flourish, things like this. I'm not just saying it's because it's us. Other people do shows on YouTube. I think that is great. Versus like, okay, what's the contribution to humanity to have one that I saw the other day, Martin Luther King wrestling Hulk Hogan? What I think that's sort of the balancing act, right?
I'd take Hogan in that one probably.
I think Martin Luther King
I think the biggest problem with data centers is people don't understand it because they're not being explained. It's like, okay, you're out in the middle of a farm field somewhere. Doesn't really affect me. But we're going to suck up all your water and we're going to take all your electricity. Well, now I'm concerned. Why can't you provide your own water, provide your own electricity, and do your thing?
That's right.
Charge more for, well, they don't charge for Google or YouTube, but, find a way to make that money, but it doesn't, I think that's what people are concerned about. And now that, the animal is out of the cage, people are like, well, we just don't trust that they would do the right thing. So I think it's a big communication and publicity gap there.
Yeah, I felt the same way about YouTube that Facebook. I've talked about Facebook. First of all, I think I've never been kicked off Facebook because whatever the algorithm, I'm so mean to the Republicans. I think Facebook's algorithm is like, when I say offensive things, they're like, just let him stay. He's mean to the Republicans. But like, you and I have used YouTube for years with various business ventures. Like, we would be complete hypocrites if we were here saying, "Oh, these data centers are all bad."
Anybody that uses Gmail or uses the internet uses a product from a data center.
Like I said, and the Michael Hicks article in the Indy Star today I thought was pretty good, which pains me to say. But I think you got to get your head around two things. Three things really. One, where do you put them? Where do you make sure that it doesn't interfere in a quality of life? Two, the financial incentives are kind of ridiculous, and I think it's even sort of been acknowledged by the fact that now some of these data centers, like the Google data center was proposed in Indianapolis that got tabled, that got knocked away, Franklin Township.
Those are too close to population.
Well, and they kind of acknowledged, hey, we're going to be giving money away to the schools and stuff. Okay, so now that we've acknowledged the financial component's a little screwed up. And the third thing, and probably the most important thing, are the resources. How do we ensure that these data centers are not causing the cost is one aspect to it, but a shortage of electric right. and water resources. And I think until governments and the data center and the companies that own these data centers get their heads around that collectively and meet with the communities, you're going to still see a lot of pushback.
Well, I mean, AES can't even keep the power on in most homes when you get a little windstorm. What's going to happen when they put data centers in there? Are they going to be able to stay online as well?
100%.
All right, moving on. And I mentioned the cornfields, but Quiet Supernova pointed out the slogan, "There's more than corn in Indiana," is turning into no more corn in Indiana.
Yeah, so
good point.
Well, and this is like LEAP district, okay? When you go the endless innovation, whatever LEAP stands for, everybody knows what it is that's hearing this. So they just tell me all the time on the radio, they were like, not everybody knows. There's people driving who don't know. I'm pretty sure at this point, anybody hearing my voice knows what the LEAP district is in Lebanon. And when you look at the amount of pristine farm ground that was taken down to build that or in the process of building it, and they did it without enough water, and they did it without enough power, and now you're pumping 25 million gallons a day from Eagle Creek in to try to stay afloat, and now you've got supposedly all these other companies that are coming in. Look, that doesn't work. There and you know, Hicks points out in the article, there's a lot of data centers that are totally unassuming. They're not big sprawling campuses. They're much smaller than, 175,000 square feet, which is, I believe, the average Walmart, size of an average Walmart. Like they're fine, right? And so there has to be some sort of balancing act with all of this. And we should not be giving money away, especially the way we're doing it.
Right.
I think that's the key the state is going to have to get its head around.
All right, moving on. Kevin Branham, I tell people every day about your show, Rob.
Thank you.
We appreciate that.
Gold star.
Mr. Beckwith adds new subscriber here.
Oh.
Welcome, Mr. Beckwith.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. Oh, Backwith. Well, Backwith.
It's like, well,
I was like, wait a minute. Who is that?
That's either trolling or that's, as Ron Burgundy would say, I don't believe you.
That was a delayed reaction for me there. I didn't catch that. Jack the Libertarian, we need to eliminate the gas tax. I don't think many people would disagree with that because they're obviously not using it for the roads. I added that part. Kevin Branham again backs in. Gas is $3.89 in Greenwood this morning. We just had Mr. Herrick there talking about gas, and I drove by the Speedway as suggested, and I got my gas for $3.39 this morning.
Yeah.
Because I came up little gas station on Prospect out in the middle of just like little housing area there or whatever. What am I trying to say? In town. $3.39. Thought, well, it may be half water, half gas, but I'm gonna get it anyway.
That's what I paid, and I used Bill's advice. The Speedway had gone up. The Kroger across the Speedway was still $3.39. So now I'm gonna be in a competition with you each day to see who can get the cheaper gas.
I don't really pay a whole lot of attention, but 50 cents, 60 cents was quite a difference there. So, all right, let's see where are we at here. Ethan Hatcher.
We love Ethan.
Ethan said we're allowed to use his name.
We did ask Ethan
at his own peril. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure is the Ben Franklin quote that Rob was searching for.
That's what
earlier.
It was.
Leave it to Ethan to come up with.
I knew
he
would know that. Yes.
Yeah. He also added, talking about Carmel and the price of housing, things like that. Ethan added, the reason why Carmel rents are so high is because people are willing to pay a premium to hobnob with high society and be located miles far away from the ghetto. You could rent my houses for half of that. Sorry, Ethan, but you got bullet holes in your houses also. You put that on Facebook. Had to add that in there. Ethan, great buddy.
Yeah, Ethan's awesome.
Good guy. Great
We
guy.
love Ethan. Anything else?
Yeah, we got a couple more here.
Perfect.
We'll get to it. All right. John Lee, I like to do this because I like people to know that we are paying attention to the chats, and it is very important to us.
We love you guys.
And by the way, you can see all these, like if you watch on YouTube after the fact, you can just go through and read the chats as well. Let's see. We got John Lee, 1993, make the homestead exemption 100% and raise taxes on rentals.
So this is the So he's talking about property taxes.
Yes.
This is the conversation, and I actually, Abdul and I were having this conversation driving into work today. We were just shooting the breeze about a bunch of nothing, and we were talking about this being the 1-year anniversary of the property tax rally. And I said, you cannot fix the current system. Like every time this is the same way. Remember the liquor laws are the same way. Every time they try, it's one special interest giveaway after another in the in the liquor lobby. So every time they try to fix it, you've got to upset somebody who's given a bunch of money. So it always ends up being more. Remember when Rickers a couple years ago figured out how to legally sell cold beer, like they were following the law, and there was some hole in the law where Rickers stores were able to legally sell cold beer. Brian Bosma and David Long, the Speaker of the House and the Pro Tem of the Senate, practically tore their hamstrings sprinting to a podium talking about how they were going to stop that. Like, these people are following the law. You guys wrote the law. It's not like you're out there going, arrest that man for disobeying. No, they followed your law. You're mad they found a hole in your law, and your vow was, we're going to stop that business from being able to do that. It's the same thing with property taxes. The system itself is so broken, you can't fix the system. This was my whole argument the whole time. You have to get rid of property taxes. You have to get rid of it and replace it. Now, I do think that asking businesses that are making money off being here, right, asking them to pay property taxes because they're a for-profit entity is different than asking the 86-year-old woman who's lived in her house for 40 or 50 years and might lose her house because of her property taxes. But you got to scrap the whole system. There's no way to make the system work. Absolutely none.
All right, and we'll finish up here on the comments. The kind of multitasking here. The spray jockey back says Rob needs a Sagamore.
Yes.
And he also pointed out, or she perhaps pointed out, this person pointed out that I thought Rob and Braun were good buddies. LD Stutz pointed out, you must be new. All right.
Yes.
So, and then another Drain the Swamp. I was there at the Braun, at your property tax rally. Watched Braun roll up his sleeves. Guess he was just getting ready to wash dishes.
Yeah. We all went for a wash. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Jason.
Absolutely, Rob.
It's my favorite segment of the day. It's where you do most of the talking.
All right.
Well, all right. So I saw this article. Indiana Capital Chronicle has the story. Nikki Kelly will be with us tomorrow, by the way, from the Indiana Capital Chronicle, talking about some of the biggest news stories of the week. And if you guys recall, I'd mentioned this, I think it was late last week I mentioned this, that I had heard ads running against, on the radio, running against these incumbent senators who had voted against redistricting. And I'm sure I was like the only person to notice this. I said, those ads are interesting to me because there's no call to vote for or against someone. There's no, they were being critical of this specific senator was Jim Buck that they were being critical of. He's been there since the earth was young. And they're being critical of him on a variety of things, redistricting the gas tax. First time I've heard the gas tax mentioned in a long time. But I said, I'm going to be curious who this group is that's paying for this ad because I don't hear any call to action. Nobody's saying, at no point did they say vote against Jim Buck. They were saying call Jim Buck and be critical of him for these things, but they weren't saying vote against Jim Buck, and they weren't saying before the person he's running against, which told me that's an outside group, not a political action committee, not a candidate, because they're not legally allowed to tell people to vote for or against somebody. And boom, our friends at the Indiana Capital Chronicle came out with an article on who this group is, and they're called Hoosier Leadership for America. According to the Indiana Capital Chronicle, they don't know how much money this group is going to spend because they are listed, according to the IRS, as a nonprofit organization, get this, based out of a single-family home on Fort Wayne's northeast side. Well, who's from the greater Fort Wayne area? Jim Banks, U.S. Senator. According to the Capital Chronicle, the group, which organized a pro-redistricting event featuring who? Indiana Senator Jim Banks in Noblesville in September, and then goes on to say they're registered with the IRS as a nonprofit group out of Fort Wayne's northeast side. I don't think you got to be a rocket scientist to start potentially connecting some dots here. as part of being a nonprofit organization, the rules are kind of this, right? They can't call you to action. Just like, did you guys know there are nonprofit radio stations out there? They're called non-coms. A lot of community radio stations now are non-coms. They can't solicit advertising that calls you to action. So, like an example would be, McDonald's could advertise on the radio station. They could say, we have cheeseburgers, but they can't say, come to McDonald's, we have the best cheeseburgers, and they're 99 cents. Those are calls to action. Same thing applies with these nonprofit groups. However, because they don't call to action, because they can't advocate for a specific political candidate, they can keep the sources of their money secret. Whereas, these other groups have to report political action committees, candidates. They have to report donations above a certain amount. They have to report how their money got spent. These groups, they don't have to do that. They're referred to often as dark money groups. According to the Capitol Chronicle, they had reached out to Jim Banks' office. He did not respond to telephone or email requests to comment on Monday. They also did not get back to the person identified in advertising purchases as the organization's treasurer. They also did not hear back from that person, it appears. The group has no contact on its website, and the digital ads display an incorrect online address. And as it says, the Capitol Chronicle goes on to say, the ads also avoid disclosure requirements by not specifically seeking votes for or against a candidate by directing viewers or listeners to call a state legislative switchboard number to voice their opinion. So there you go. That answers. See, I'm always so far ahead of the curve. I told you guys, I said, this is not a political action committee. This is not a candidate running these ads. I knew it because there was no call to action, and now we know who they are. They go by the name Hoosier Leadership for America, and they appear, at least on the surface, to have some connection to U.S. Senator Jim Banks. Article from the New York Times that I think affects every single one of us, and it is about how purchasing an automobile is now becoming increasingly more and more unaffordable. You guys know I've talked about this for years. I've had my current automobile. My current automobile is it's 9 years old, almost 10, it's 10 years old now. I've had it for 7 years. It is a golf cart with a motor. I have no power locks. I have no power windows. Why do I like this car? Knock on wood, it gets me to where I need to go each day. It's not a car I would recommend taking on any sort of lengthy trip. It is a car that I regularly still have to put oil in. However, it gets incredible gas mileage. And right now, that's sure coming in handy. But my wife and I have looked at the past couple of years buying a car that's new to us. I don't think we'd buy a new car. We're not that wealthy, but a car that's new to us. And we've just made the financial decision that it's so expensive to purchase a new car or a car that's new to you, even if it's a used car. Our current cars meet the quote-unquote needs that we have. I, of course, I should have been a nun, right? I've basically taken a vow of poverty. And so we're fine getting through with what we have. But here's some data. According to the New York Times, the average monthly new car payment has reached $774 in January. $774 in January. That's up from $588 in 2021. So in 5 years, we have seen the new car payments increase by almost $200. That's according to Edmunds. They're an auto research firm. More than 20% of new car borrowers agreed to pay over $1,000 a month at the end of last year. Can you imagine paying $1,000 a month for a new automobile? There's no way the average person can sustain that. When you factor in insurance, gas, repairs, and maintenance into the cost of a car, total cost of owning a vehicle has risen by more than 40% since January of 2020. So you think about if your previous, and these are, of course, just easy to understand round numbers, if your payment was $100, it's now $140. And by the way, the average interest rate on a 60-month new car loan, so 60 months, 5 years, probably not enough to pay it off, 7.22% in November, and 1.45% of all Americans were at least 60 days delinquent on their automobile loan in the third quarter. That's 28% higher than 3 years ago. Look, these are dumpster fire numbers. These are complete and utter disaster numbers. And when you couple it with the segment we talked about earlier, which is that The average American now has, it averages out to $11,500 of credit card debt. Look, we're in big trouble. I mean, you get to the point where people just start paying off the interest. They're not even paying off the principal, and then you never actually own the thing. You're seeing this with home loans, with automobile loans, with credit card debt. We are a society that is starting to mirror our federal government because we learn from our government. The government is the example. And if the government example is we'll just keep adding debt, we'll just keep putting money on the credit card. I saw Nikki Haley put out a tweet that through the first Nikki Haley is the former secretary of, no, she was the former ambassador to the UN. She was the former governor of South Carolina, Republican. That the federal government, under all Republicans, right? Republicans control the House, the Senate, the presidency. We have added $1 trillion to our nation's debt through the first 5 months. Republican leadership, Republican rule, $1 trillion. $1 trillion to our nation's debt in the first 5 months. How is that sustainable? How is that okay? Why is that okay? Why do we accept it? Why aren't people, the Republicans who voted for Republicans, why aren't you outraged about this? How could you vote for any incumbent who has voted to do this? Senate or House. How could you vote in Indiana for any incumbent who has voted for that big, beautiful bill, any of that, when they know what's going on with our nation's debt, and yet they're still voting to add, we are adding $1 trillion every 5 months, according to Nikki Haley, to our nation's debt. It is just simply unsustainable. We're not going to be able to keep this up. The roof is caving in on us. When you look at the economy, you look at the debt, you look at the dollars it costs to just service our debt. Guys, at some point, it just all falls over. I mean, the legs are getting wobbly. Every representative, Democrat or Republican, should have to answer this because they're all accountable for it in some ways. I mean, Indiana only has 2 Democrat representatives, Carson and Frank Mervan. They voted for this stuff when Biden was in charge. It's not like they're any better. But certainly now that the Republicans are in charge, all 7 of our congressmen that are Republicans should have to answer, why is this okay? They all voted for the big, beautiful bill. Did Sparks vote for it? Maybe Sparks didn't. I don't know. I think she went back and forth on it. I think ultimately she did. I think she was hooting and hollering and then finally went along with it. But all 7 of them should have to answer, why is this okay? Rudy Yoakum, Jim Baird, Aaron Houchin, Marlon Stutzman. Boy, you want to be disappointed in a guy that's totally changed the second time back. It's Marlon Stutzman, a guy who was like a Rand Paul, Thomas Massey type of dude the first time. Now he's status quo. Why is this okay? Jefferson Shreve, why is this okay? I'd be fascinating to see if you could even get an answer about why adding $1 trillion every 5 months is okay with the Republicans in the House. Same thing for Jim Banks and Todd Young. We know what Young is. I thought Banks was supposed to be Mr. Fiscal Responsibility. Jim Banks is in lockstep with all of the stuff Trump is doing, including adding $1 trillion to the nation's debt every 5 months. He was one of the biggest supporters of the big, beautiful bill. It's believed he has ties to this organization that has got these senators, these people challenge these incumbent senators running solely on they weren't loyal enough to Trump. They didn't redistrict for Trump. Ask Jim Banks, why is that okay? Why is that acceptable? It doesn't make you a bad person to ask Republican politicians about their voting records. For some reason, some of us think that it is. It's not. It's okay to look at a House member, a Senate member, your local elected officials, your state reps and state senators, and say, why did you do whatever? Force them to answer the question. It's your money that they're wasting. It's your money that they're blowing through. It's your money that they're engaged in the legalized vote buying process. Ask them the questions. Don't shake their hand. Don't act like it's cool to meet them or you're lucky to meet them. All of these politicians should be answering questions about their actual voting record, and we have to do a better job of holding these people accountable. That is ultimately where all of this rests. In us refusing to hold these people accountable, the re-election rates in this country are off the charts. A bunch of these people, these U.S. reps, have challengers this year. Why wouldn't you vote for somebody else? Could it actually get any worse? A bunch of our state House and state Senate members have challengers. Now, I've expressed great disappointment with these people who are running solely on redistricting, that they're missing colossal opportunities to lay out an agenda, to talk about issues that matter, that they can actually have some control over to better our lives. But you got to hold these state senators accountable too, these incumbents, for their voting records. All of them. That's what it's all about. All right. Thank you guys for another amazing show today. You guys have been phenomenal. Just a couple of reminders, please. If you haven't subscribed, we're so close to that 1,800 subscribers. I'd love to get that by the end of the day. I think we can do it together. Hit that thumbs up button before you go and share this feed. Let people know where we're at. Let them know what we are doing. And if you're feeling generous, go to the robkendallshow.com page, hit the support button, help us out as we continue to grow the program. Thanks as always to producer Jason doing his usual outstanding job. And we will see you right here tomorrow. 10 until noon. You've been watching Rob Kendall Show.